Parallel number 2 with Adventism is an extremely literalistic, futuristic, speculative, and dogmatic way of interpreting Bible prophecy. Here's just one example. There are many more, but the Adventist analysis of Revelation 9 through 11. The subject of the prophecy is Mohammed. The subsequent Ottoman Empire is Apollyon. The men tormented are the Greeks. The 4 angels are the 4 nations that compose the Ottoman Empire. The 2 witnesses are the Old and New Testament. And the beast from the bottomless pit is France. Who knew? Pages and pages of this in days, weeks, years, and various starting points, double fulfillments, year-day theory prove that all these things will be finished by the close of 1843. In relation to prophecy especially, the same methods of scripture twisting were used that Watchtower publications used. Here are only 3. Number 1, ignoring the context. Many random passages or verses are yanked out to prove whatever the writer is trying to prove. The context is completely ignored, let alone the context of the whole book of the Bible it's in, what type of literature it is, its main idea or purpose, the historical context, what it means to the original audience, etc. You'll notice that in Watchtower literature, it's also not uncommon for only one phrase of a verse to be used, thus ignoring the context of even one verse. Number 2, collapsing contexts. This is when 2 or more unrelated texts are treated as if they belong together. This method makes quite a mess. It's as though one were making a stew. Throw in all kinds of verses from here and there, and voila, out comes 1914 or whatever else you want to prove. Number 3, esoteric interpretation. Passages contain a hidden meaning that only the elite can discern. If you read studies in the scriptures, you'll notice Russell constantly uses phrases like, any true seeker can see, honest-hearted ones will realize. I sometimes wonder if there is a kind of emperor's new clothes phenomenon going on with these complex chronologies. Undoubtedly, many people didn't really follow or understand all the points and how they led to the end date. But when they constantly hear that the true Christians, the truly spiritual ones, will see this, it can snowball into a peer pressure thing where suggesting or admitting you don't completely get it becomes an admission of being unspiritual or unenlightened. Going along with esoteric interpretation was the idea Adventists taught that there would be special revelation and insight given just before the cataclysmic events of the end times. Of course, in their day, they were the chosen ones to convey these special insights. A quote from them said, prior to the close of the gospel dispensation, there would be a class of messengers to proclaim the immediate coming of the Lord to judgment. Charles Taze Russell had the same view of himself, that he was a special messenger bringing light for the last days. Parallel number 3, reading yourself into Bible prophecy. Adventists took the parable of the 10 virgins as prophecy and used it as one of their key passages. Of course, people who accepted their message were the wise virgins, while those that didn't were the foolish virgins. And of course, they were the ones calling out the midnight cry. They also sometimes alluded to themselves as fulfilling the parable of the faithful and discreet slave. Their apocalyptic message was the meat in due season. Sound familiar? Of course, one of the most ridiculous examples of reading yourself into Scripture is the Watchtower's claim that the 7 trumpets of Revelation were fulfilled with 7 Watchtower conventions. A lesser-known example is their book, The Finished Mystery, being the fulfillment of the sword spoken of in Ezekiel 38. And just to end, I have this just quote that I think is kind of funny. It's from the book called The Last Trump. A confrontation between the Unitarians and the Evangelicals was therefore unavoidable. The ironic thing thus happened that J. H. Waggoner's forceful anti-Trinitarian book was criticized by his son, Elliot Waggoner, together with the keen debater Elder Jones. Waggoner became the foremost spokesman for a more orthodox view on soteriology. An examination of the printed agenda for the conference shows that the domineering old-timers had not intended to discuss Christology. To them, peripheral apocalyptic problems, such as who was the 10th horn in Daniel 7, were of greater importance. The parties locked horns over that peripheral apocalyptic query in Daniel, where A.T. Jones was accused of heresy for siding against Smith's view that the Huns constituted the 10th horn.